Hi, I'm LadyJenevia. Last year I made a video called I Stand with Ray Fisher, and then in parentheses, this Joss Whedon story isn't new. That was a video that I made right after Ray Fisher first came out and started speaking up about the morally repugnant things that happened with the Justice League reshoots. There were a lot of developments to that story that I did not make more videos about because that's not really what I do on here. The majority of what I do is review and discuss the actual media that gets released, the films, the television series. I mostly focus on that final finished piece of media. I don't really do recurring commentary videos that cover the current events to do with the latest dramatic headlines of whatever is going on behind the scenes of the entertainment industry. So when Ray Fisher kept making new statements over the last year, at most I usually did things like retweet or tweet something on my Twitter to spread awareness about the situation and express my continued support of Ray. A lot has happened since I first made that video about Ray's initial statement. I posted a video essay a couple of weeks ago about Zack Snyder's filmography that blew up and is now the most viewed video on my channel. Wow, thank you. I also did an interview with Ray himself that is 2 hours and 40 something minutes long. Clearly my name is Alan Carr because I am a chatty man. But all of these things got me thinking even more about what Ray has said on his Twitter account, in the interviews that he's done, and now even Chris Terrio has done an interview saying that everyone he has talked to that had to be present for those reshoots did not have a good experience. My YouTube channel is currently the largest platform that I have. It's not the biggest platform in the grand scheme of the internet, but it's something. As I've transitioned from a child or an adolescent into being an adult with greater critical thinking skills, it's become really important to me that I try to support artists who are not only great at creating high quality art, but are also good people. Conversely, if someone has demonstrated a clear pattern of behavior that is toxic and harmful to the people around them, I don't want to support them. There are plenty of other artists that would love to have that opportunity and make incredible art without hurting people. One of the things that I've wondered about or wanted to happen is for prominent actors from the MCU to speak up about what type of person Joss is. I want to make it very clear that I'm not trying to force anyone's hands, because if you're dealing with trauma, you don't owe anyone your story if you're not ready or if you don't feel safe sharing it. I also don't know what sort of NDAs these actors might be dealing with, and I'm not a lawyer. I wouldn't know how those types of contracts work. I also think that there is a decent chance that some of these MCU actors might not have had it as bad, because it seems like, and I want to make it clear that I'm saying it seems, it's just my personal opinion and speculation, that this is a person who is more likely to target people that don't have power or status that can shield themselves against his toxicity and threats. I would worry though about some of the less A-list names from the Avengers films, whether it's actors in supporting roles, extras, or members of the crew. That is why, to circle it back around, I would be curious about what the big name actors from the Avengers films have to say, because I think they have a much higher amount of privilege than the people in those other jobs I just listed. I decided to do some digging because Ray has been speaking up for over 9 months now, and none of those actors have said anything. I've already shared the things that I'm going to share in this video on my Twitter, but I wanted to also share them here on YouTube because this is my largest platform. I just want to do my part to spread awareness and share information so that maybe more people will know where to start looking. It's not a lot, but it's all that I have. I looked through a lot of interviews on YouTube, and I also went digging through different print interviews. The first thing I want to focus on is from an Entertainment Weekly print interview. There is a video version, but I was cross-checking the video with the print article, and it seems like there's more written in the article than in the video interview. The article seems like a more complete transcript of the interview session, whereas the video has trimmed some things out. The interview is from 2012, before the Avengers came out. However, these pieces were published in April 2019. I would assume that Entertainment Weekly had some sort of archives of their raw interview audio and video files and decided to dig them out to get those MCU clicks. So one of the first things that jumped out at me is the first part of the article that is transcribing what is happening before the interview has officially begun. This part was not in the video version of this interview. I checked. This excerpt begins when the talent are all gathering and the questions have not officially started yet. Enter Robert Downey Jr., in real life Tony Stark. Where is Chris Evans? Getting his face replaced? The Iron Man actor says as he picked up a Captain America mask and pulled it over his face. Just the night before, the actors got together to shoot one last-minute scene for the movie before release. The now famous post-credits joke with all the battered heroes sitting around, quietly eating shawarma. Evans had grown a beard for another role and he couldn't shave it. By the way, I was cross-checking the dates of this, and Chris Evans was reported as entering negotiations for Snowpiercer as early as January 13th in 2012. The first Avengers film was released on May 4th. If you look at Chris Evans' appearance in this Entertainment Weekly session, he has the same buzzed haircut and beard as he does in Snowpiercer, so I'm pretty sure that's the unnamed project here. Now back to the article. Evans had grown a beard for another role, and he couldn't shave it. So Team Marvel had to cover his lower face with a rubber prosthetic. The end result was nightmare-inducing. That's why Captain America is eating while resting his hand over his cheek. Evans was not yet in the conference room to defend himself, but that didn't stop Downey from mocking him. So just to recap, this interview happened the day after they shot the post-credits scene. Chris Evans had to wear a prosthetic because he had facial hair for a new job. Those parallels are something. Now back to the article. Whedon stared daggers at Downey. The leak about the post-credits scene had been his doing. "Thank you for having every reporter ask me what we were shooting today," the director said. "You're welcome," Downey answered, unapologetic. Entertainment Weekly asks, "Yeah, Joss, what were you shooting today?" Joss Whedon squints eyes. Robert Downey Jr. pointing at self. "Carnival Baker. Last night, I wanted to make sure the excitement was there." Whedon imitating reporters. "I hear you're shooting a scene?" He purses his lips in a fake smile. "I'm sure I don't know what you mean." Downey to EW. "You never heard any of this." Now, for those of you that have never dealt with people in the entertainment industry, whether it's film, TV, or music, this will happen. People will tell you things and tell you not to share them. If I'm asked to keep quiet about something, especially an upcoming project, I will, because I think it's the respectful thing to do. I don't know if Entertainment Weekly did or did not say anything about the post-credits scene back when this was happening because of what happened in this room, but I don't want you to get distracted by this part of the conversation. I want to hone in on the part where Joss is glaring daggers at Robert Downey Jr., and Robert Downey Jr. is being very flippant about how he responds to being confronted about leaking the post-credits scene. You're welcome. Now, I was not there for this or any other interview that they did on that junket. I don't know how or when Robert Downey Jr. was speaking about the post-credits scene to the press. On the one hand, I think he is more than experienced enough in the industry to know how to not leak things, so you could speculate that this leak was done deliberately to have a go at Joss. But on the other hand, people make mistakes. Just because you are a celebrity does not mean you are immune from making mistakes, and the leak could just as easily have been harmless. I will not make any claims about what his intentions were. It really could be anything, and it's not my place to guess one way or another. But this friction between them, as reported by Entertainment Weekly, is noteworthy because in a way it could connect to what Ray Fisher has claimed in an interview with Vanity Fair. He compared me at one point to Robert Downey Jr. and said, "Listen, I don't like to take notes from anybody, not even Robert Downey Jr." And I said, "Well, okay, be that as it may, Robert Downey Jr. has been catapulted to the upper stratosphere of Hollywood status by playing Tony Stark. From what people have come forward to say about working with Joss, they make him seem like a person with a very fragile ego. Why else would he be continuing to bring up Robert Downey Jr.'s name on other gigs, and more specifically to try to position himself as above Robert Downey Jr. in a hierarchy? Bragging about not taking notes from people just makes you come across like a person who is not collaborative, and since when is lacking the ability to collaborate something to brag about, especially when you're making movies? I collaborated with a YouTuber who has a much larger channel than mine. Her YouTube channel is called It's Divya, and when I asked her if she would be willing to do a segment for a video of mine, I gave her 0 rules. I told her that she could do a segment that was any length, any editing style, any tone. All I wanted her to do was her thing. She's great. I don't need to micromanage her. That's why I asked her to be a part of it. Now, obviously, making YouTube videos is a lot more of a free, open medium of creating than a giant Hollywood blockbuster. I get that. But for me, it's the principle of the matter. Moving further into this Entertainment Weekly article, there was a point where the Entertainment Weekly reporter says, "I remember when I visited the set last summer, almost every one of you said your character is desperately lonely or broken. So which of these characters is the most psychologically messed up of all?" Look at the response to the question. This part of the interview happens to be in the video Entertainment Weekly posted.
When I visited the set, I think almost every one of you that I talked to described your character as sort of desperately lonely, and I wondered which of these characters is the most messed up of all?
Oh, characters.
Characters.
I don't.
Now, I am not here to diagnose anyone, and this could very easily be a joke, but I'm pretty sure there's some sort of expression to do with there being a lot of truth in comedy. I think this part of the interview hints at there being the possibility of a certain amount of self-awareness that can in turn relate to another part of this article. When Joss and I first met, we talked. He met with each of us individually before the script was finished, to try to set them against each other so I could control them. This line stood out to me immediately. When Ray Fisher first came out last year against Joss Whedon and a number of other higher-ups involved with the Justice League reshoots, there were some people that did not believe him, especially if they were already emotionally invested in the works of some of the people he was speaking up about, including, but not limited to, Joss Whedon. But then, more of those skeptics seemed to get on board when Carpenter released a statement sharing more than she ever had before about what Joss Whedon had done to her, and that she supported Ray Fisher. So here we have an interview from 2012 where Joss Whedon says to try to set them against each other so I could control them. Now let's go to Carpenter's statement. It's long, but there's just one sentence in particular that I want to hone in on. He was mean and biting, disparaging about others openly, and often played favorites, pitting people against one another to compete and vie for his attention and approval. Do you see how a pattern is emerging? You have Ray Fisher speaking up about what he experienced, Carpenter speaking up to say that she stands with Ray Fisher and has her own horror stories from working with him, and now we have a quote directly from the horse's mouth that validates these claims about his behavior. The final thing I want to share is from an Age of Ultron junket interview posted by HeyUGuys. By the way, everything I'm referencing in this video I have linked in the description box, so you can pull everything up yourself if you want to also share it on your platforms or just have it bookmarked somewhere. I also want to give a shout out to Everything Evans, a Chris Evans fan page on Twitter, for helping me to narrow down my search when I was trying to find out if there were quotes directly from Chris Evans about Joss Whedon, since there were some rumors that he didn't care for him. In the interview, these two Chris's are asked about working with Joss Whedon.
What was it like coming back and working with Joss again?
Nightmare. No, it's great. It's tricky for him because, you know, when you go to your individual movie, or should I say, when you're on the Avengers films, you have all these people that we know very well, and it really is like, you know, it's like a party, and everyone's, it's hard to wrangle everybody, and I think Joss has his...
We heard "shut up" quite a few times.
A lot.
Set from Joss.
Guys, hey, shut up! And you just kind of...
Like, Chris, was Evans.
We're in trouble. Like, you feel like you're 12 years old in trouble at school. Like, shut up. We have to work.
This,
Not to be an oversensitive baby about everything, but I have a hard time imagining why any of this would be necessary. To be fair, I've never been on set of a big Hollywood blockbuster, but you're never going to convince me that behavior like this is necessary. You are not going to tell me that there is scientific data to back up a director treating talent like this. There are plenty of other directors that have great reputations for how they treat the people they work with. And I'm not just doing this to compare him to Zack Snyder, though he does have a great reputation. His cast and crew adore him. Guy Ritchie also has a really good reputation from his cast and crew.
You can always judge a good director by the way their crew talk about them as well, and his crew, they just would do anything for him, and they really respect him as a director, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. So I love Guy, loved working with him.
And my favorite music video director, Alan Badoev, one of the nicest guys you will ever meet. He does yell on his sets, but it's because he's really excited about how good things look, and also because he'll be talking to the performers through a mic because it's a music video, so a lot of the shots he's getting don't require him to be quiet while the camera is rolling because they're going to swap the audio out for the studio version of the song.
Ой, вот он кадр, да! Есть снято! О, да! Да!
I know that Joss Whedon is not the only person that Ray Fisher has spoken out against, but this video was just about what I found while searching for anything from the MCU actors, specifically because they are some of the most high-profile actors that have had to deal with Joss, and I think that status would offer quite a lot of protection if any of them ever decided to speak up about him. They are not obligated to share anything, of course, which is why all I have done in this video is pull up quotes and clips that are already out there. None of this information is new, technically, but I've simply compiled it into one place and cross-referenced some things. The conclusion that I came to is that hindsight is 20/20, and a lot of things that seemed innocuous at the time really weren't. I said last summer that I stand with Ray Fisher, and I still stand with him about all of the things that he has shared about those reshoots and everything that has happened since he started to speak up about this. I know that people are more cognizant of Joss Whedon's track record right now, but I would also hope that these people would keep this energy in a few years when other people's scandals are probably going to be dominating the headlines. Why was Brett Ratner announced as having a new project to helm? You think we forgot who you are? No. Thankfully, it seems like a lot of backlash flared up very quickly, and it squashed any momentum that it had to begin with. I will be getting back to my regularly scheduled programming after this, reviews, video essays, commentary, and all that other fun stuff, so I'll see you then. Bye.